I mean, I think what you just said was a good definition of the experience of burnout. I mean, and it could be a lot worse. It could be something like complete psychological collapse at the extreme when those things shift a lot. But I think it's a good description for burnout. Um, and ironically, I think a lot of people that are experiencing that, they flee stressors of all kinds to try to be able to more comfortably make it through, right? It's like, how do I just get the monkey off my back and get through this? Um, and so I think, oddly enough, it's like a weird compounding of bad choices, right? I mean, anybody can wind up feeling a sense of burnout, I think, but there's a lot of people from that state that wind up trying to alleviate it through making things easier. And that's a weird cycle of deterioration, right? You try to escape those things, and then maybe you do, and then maybe you get more comfortable for a couple of weeks, and then you realize the environment hasn't really changed, and now you're in the same state, but even more so wanting that escape. You work with people through burnout?
Burnout and boredom. Boredom meaning they're in a shadow career that looks really, really awesome to other people.
Yeah.
And their heart's not in it anymore.
How do you distinguish between burnout and boredom in those cases?
It's one, I think, a felt sense when I'm talking to that person.
Okay.
Felt sense, and I think also a way of listening
Yeah.
to not only what they're saying, but the way that they're saying it, what they're not saying, the tonality or quality of their voice, where they speed up or slow down. And I think listening to almost like the space in between of what's wanting to be said. Because I know from my own experience, I had a period in my career of, I don't know that I would have called it burnout, but I would have called it frustrating confusion why I couldn't grow. So I was doing all of the things that had led to that current level of achievement or success, however you want to define it, which I was really, really grateful for. And I think that's another key, was there's nothing actually wrong in that moment. Like everything was humming well. Like I actually had what I had wanted. And yet the thought of creating more of that was, I couldn't fathom it. And I think consciously, if you had asked me at the time, I would have definitely given you a Stepford answer, which is no, absolutely. I'm definitely enjoying it. But if you had listened deeper underneath, and I had a mentor in my life that did, and I said, I just want you to help me grow and sustain this growth and for it not to go away, because I could start to see where it was trickling and where it wasn't working. And they laughed and said, you're not struggling, you're bored. And what you actually need is to stop worrying about sustainability. And you need to be willing to be completely uncertain. And that hit me really hard. Like I had to really step back from that conversation. It just stuck with, those comments that really haunt you in a good way.
Yeah.
And it was true. And I think that there was a little bit of shame and embarrassment around admitting that for myself, like being ungrateful, which I'm a big proponent of gratitude. Being dissatisfied when one of my values is finding contentment
Mm.
anywhere, bringing contentment to what you're doing. And so it was a kind of a cognitive dissonance of, ooh, what does it feel like to say that I want different, I want more, not more of the same. And yeah, so I think that's where, I wouldn't ever ask somebody to go deeper and look at the distinction between boredom and burnout, where I have not been willing to look at the same for myself.
Yeah,
And burnout looks a little bit different. And I would actually love hearing your voice, because I think this comes into capacity, where sometimes it's the big answers of building greater capacity. And then I've also noticed that people burn out on just sensory, like flooding, like too much
for sure. Yeah.
sensory overload in our modern life, particularly too much inputs,
Yeah.
and especially not quality inputs all the time. And then they're it's almost like their nervous system is fried, and it's just stuck on, SNS, like sympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
And where silence is terrifying to them, but also what their system, like their nervous system, actually needs to just digest the complexities that they have been working through. I don't know if you've seen that in capacities.
Yeah. Well, I think my challenge with it is I think that like burnout is one of those things that we can kind of recognize, but um I think you did a good job of defining it. It's like it's amalgam of a bunch of different problems, right? It's hard to just narrow it down and say that this is the issue. And to your point, if somebody just has more capacity, it's possible burnout wouldn't be taking place. It's also possible somebody feels, you know, bored with what they're doing because there's not enough challenge within that same environment. Like there might be other solutions to those problems within that. And I think if you're not really dissecting it, it's tough to know what the root cause might be.